Everyone, today I want to talk about a 1970 science fiction movie. This is the Andromeda strain, and it's directed by Robert Wise from a novel by Michael Crichton. I thought I would do a little mini series on Michael Crichton movies in the 1970s that was inspired by some comments made by Chris Mohan on his YouTube channel, where he was talking about Looker from 1980. And if you're not a subscriber to Chris Mohan's channel, I highly recommend it. There's some great content over there, and I'll leave a link in the subscription I'll leave a link to his YouTube channel in the description below. And Michael Crichton is really kind of a summertimey kind of fiction. The Andromeda strain was his first big literary success. And this isn't really technically a Michael Crichton movie because he did not participate in the screenplay and he later would become a director. And so some of the other films in the 1970s would be Pursuit, which I'm getting from Kino Lorbersohn, and which was a TV movie, the first movie that Michael Crichton directed, and there was Coma that he directed, but he did not write the novel. Great Train Robbery that he did write, The Terminal Man. Both of those novels, including the Andromeda strain, is in this omnibus library book that I took out a few days ago. And I read the Andromeda strain. Westworld is another one that comes in this period of time. So I'll try to cover all those in the next couple months during the summertime. And I read the novel when it came out. Big bestseller. Crichton was only in his mid-20s when he wrote the novel. He had written a number of novels before that under assumed names. He was still a medical student. They didn't know at his medical college. They did not know that he was writing novels. And he had this movie. This book was not expected to sell much, but it was sold to the movies for a big price. And then the book went into bestseller land. And I believe I probably read it in the summer of 1969. It's a real fast-paced novel. And what Michael Crichton was always good at was setting up a really interesting premise. And here, in the Andromeda strain, we have a story of outer space germs, bacteria that arrive back on a space probe that lands in the middle of a small town in New Mexico. And when the trackers go to recover the space probe, they find everybody in the town, a small town of about 50 people. Everybody there is dead, lying in the street, and they can't figure out and they also are infected by it. Now, when the scientists come to explore the town, they do in fact find two survivors: an old man, the town drunk, and a baby. Because the government has been prepared for this eventuality that some virus would come to Earth, not burn up when it was re-entry, and there would be no natural antibodies that people would have because it would be an outer space virus. And so these scientists assemble at this 5-story underground facility. I think it's in Arizona, and they descend down to the 5th floor where they do the virus. So every floor, if it escaped, it would have to go through 4 more floors if the virus did escape. There's a great deal of authenticity to this movie, and similarly to the book. When I was reading the book, rereading it a few days ago, I thought, well, this is a true story because Crichton really does present it as sort of a documentary, like he's writing an article about some event that happened that he had researched. And he even provides a bibliography at the end of the book of sources that you can go to learn more about this event, which the screenwriter, when he thought they were real, but then when he investigated the bibliography, it was all fake. And so this is a really interesting premise. It's kind of a detective story, and it's using some of the high tech, what would appear to be high tech to people in 1970, and very much so. I mean, this was there was some real state-of-the-art equipment being used that wasn't even commercially available yet. And Robert Wise takes a very detached style to it, as if he were filming a kind of documentary, kind of docudrama. And he didn't want to use any name actors, at least not big star actors. He used good actors, though, because we have David Wayne from the glory days of Hollywood, James Olsen, Arthur Hill, Kate Reed. They're the four scientists. All terrific actors. In fact, Arthur Hill, I had forgotten this, I was doing some research. Arthur Hill was the original George in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf on Broadway and won a Tony Award. I would love to have seen Arthur Hill in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And in Michael Crichton's kind of his whole oeuvre, he has both a skepticism and a fascination with science. We better watch out, but boy, it's sure interesting to see what science can do. So even in this plant, where this facility, where they're trying to save the world from a virus that could spread and deadly, almost, it looked like everybody died within a few seconds. They discovered that maybe this facility is also being used for possible biological warfare. The part of the military-industrial complex that was very much a word in that period of time. And I think Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, when he left, he warned, he warned Americans against the rising power of the military-industrial complex and sinister things that are going on. So that too lends itself to the authenticity that you feel in this film. So there's a skepticism, fascination with science, and in Crichton's work, you have to encounter human error. People are not perfect; they're going to make mistakes. Machines will make mistakes. There's a machine malfunction here that's just really funny, and then of course unforeseen events, consequences of what you're doing that you can't plan for. It's just going to happen. This makes for a very interesting kind of summary kind of read, and especially in the novel, which is heavy on science. That lends itself. You see graphs, you see charts, you see transcripts. Crichton says though in the supplements, I made it all up. I didn't know any of this stuff. There was a germ of an idea. His impulse was that nobody had written a science fiction novel about a germ from outer space in the 1960s. And he thought, boy, that would be an interesting premise for a book. And he rewrote it and rewrote it. His editor was Robert Gottlieb, who had become famous in that time period for having edited Catch-22, which supposedly was a mess before Gottlieb got a hold of it. Crichton only in his mid-20s and that was part of the publicity. This young guy writing these, bestseller kind of technical thrillers or medical thrillers. And the movie is very faithful to Michael Crichton. I mean, this is Crichton. Like I say, he had nothing to do with the screenplay, the making of it, or at least not officially. But he was on the set, and he wanted to make a cameo, and you can see in the supplements they show you where he had it. They had to sit him down because he was 6'9", Michael Crichton, so he would dwarf over all the other actors and be too noticeable. So he is sitting down. That's the only cameo he ever made in any of his films, according to the supplements. So Nelson Gidding, who wrote a number of Robert Wise movies, he wrote the screenplay, again, very faithful to the book. I mean, the book is basically the screenplay, but he did make one major change. All four of the scientists in the book were men, and he thought he convinced Robert Wise, why don't we make one of them a woman? And they cast Kate Reed, and she's very crusty and comical, and it's sort of like the audience, you know, kind of roots for her. She's sort of looked down on by the other male scientists. That was a good change, I think, from book to film. There's musical scores by Gil Malay, I believe is how he was a jazz musician, but it's not actually music. It's sort of like computer sounds, and it's very eerie, very effective. Douglas Trumbull worked on the special effects, and they're really good. I mean, the way he used microscopic photography when they're actually analyzing the makeup of the virus. It's very dramatic, very, but he used all kind of other concepts, and he was so inventive on what he could use. Of course, 2001. He had already done 2001, and he was just about to do Silent Running, which he directed. He had a bit of a bigger budget here, so he could do some things not like 2001, but he did some really interesting things, and it's part of the detective, the uniqueness of the detective stories. We're seeing things in 1970. We're seeing things that we had not seen before, and that turn out to be somewhat prophetic into what science and what computers would turn out to be. So there's some really good supplements. There's three main supplements. One is with Ken Newman, and he places, and it's really good. It's like 30 minutes, and he discusses in the Andromeda strain within the context of other science fiction movies, how so many of these kind of stories would look low budget and they would look, you know, fantasy. This doesn't seem very fantasy. This seems very authentic and compared to some of the science fiction movies that came before. And of course, Robert Wise had directed a science fiction movie. What was it again? The Day the Earth Stood Still, I believe it was. So he had a feel. And Odds Against Tomorrow too, where I think there's only like 3 survivors left. He had a feel for this kind of subject matter where a group of people, a small group of people under duress, having to solve a problem quickly. And then we get interviews on the other 2 supplements where we see Robert Wise, we see Michael Crichton, talk about, and the screenwriter as well, Nelson Gidding, talk about the making of the film, again from around 2000 for the DVD. And there's just a lot of just great information stored here, and I live right by a busy street that is full of ambulances and fire trucks, and if that even comes through on the audio. But I have to talk about one thing in the movie that was really upsetting, and this is they're testing out the virus on animals, on a rat, and then they take a rhesus monkey to see if the virus is still alive, how quickly it kills off human beings, which they thought had killed them off nearly instantaneously. And we see a death scene, the greatest monkey death scene, maybe one of the greatest death scenes I've ever seen in a movie. And it's very upsetting because I thought, what did they actually killed this monkey off like this? Because, I mean, he just goes into contortions. I mean, you would think he was like, do the most outrageous death scene you can do, and he does it. But we learn in the supplements, Robert Wise assures everybody that the SPCA was on hand for this scene, and they quickly revived the monkey. He was not in danger of dying, but everybody was amazed by how effective it turned out to be. So at least you don't have to worry about that. Trigger warning, you will see a monkey death scene, but you know, he did survive. So all in all, a really interesting movie from Robert Wise, Michael Crichton, and again, the next Michael Crichton one I'll do on this summer series will be Pursuit. It will soon be coming in the mail, I believe, a couple days from now in the current Kino Lorber sale. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who listened. I do appreciate it. Comments are always welcome. Take care.